Hello and welcome to Castle for One Games. I am George Castle, and today I'll be covering SETI, designed by Thomas Hollick. This is a 1 to 4 player game, but today I'll be providing a tutorial on the solo opponent, the rival. This tutorial is meant to help you get started playing the solo mode, so you may see some pieces moved around between shots as I use different scenarios to cover the basics of the solo mode. So, let's rock. In SETI, you're going to be competing for area majority through scanning the universe for alien life, accumulating publicity points as you become more popular, gain the best technology to improve your actions from your player board, visit alien planets for galaxy dominance. Look for friends. And best of all, move this neat solar system around until you get dizzy. So join me as we travel through space, from your table, and discover the possibilities in SETI. So let's start with the setup. Now, I've set up the game the same as in the rulebook. However, for the purposes of this tutorial, I've separated the boards to show different sides, just a bit easier for me to maneuver around. That's why I have the milestone tiles set up here, instead of the usual spot. I've got the cards set up here, one set for each of the 4 rounds. However, there are 3 cards in the 2-player game instead. And then don't forget that the technology tiles are separated by type, randomly added to each stack so that the front side shows the rewards. I've also chosen 4 neutral colored markers for these spaces here, so that when they get triggered, they help with flipping an alien board, just like in a 2-player setup. For the solo mode, we each start on space 4 of the publicity track. I've also set up the player boards as you would for a 2-player game. You randomly select who will start first. In this scenario, the rival starts first. And that's why the rival's scoring marker starts with 1 point, whereas mine starts with 2 points. As for the bot setup, I have one of the player boards flipped over. So let me send you over to that section of the video to show you how we got here. So as mentioned, you select any player board and flip it over. And on this side of the board, the layout is a bit different for the bot. It has room for some tech tiles, it has its own computer track, and it's got its own decision progress track. The important thing to notice is that there are different levels on the side of the board represented by these stars, and they each start the bot with different resources or starting points. So if we choose level 1, or the one with a 1 star, it requires 4 starting cards. And here are the 4 starting cards, which are distinct in that they are lighter shade than the other regular bot action cards. Another way to notice the starting cards is that they have an S at the bottom of each corner, before the number. And then we grab a marker that I assigned as purple for the bot, and based on the level requirement, we are going to place it on the progress track with the first blue space, since that's the matching blue symbol. Now if we choose to play with level 2, it requires the same 4 cards, but this time you're going to need to set up some objective tiles. In this case, it requires 2 level 1 tiles, which are light blue. Then it requires 3 level 2 tiles. And finally, it requires 5 dark blue tiles, level 3. And I'll cover what each of these symbols mean throughout the tutorial. Now let's say you wanted to play with a level 3 board, or 3 stars. It's going to have a different requirement as well. Notice, however, that the order of the colors of the progress track changes, and instead of blue, it's now purple. It does start with 4 starting cards, plus an additional, more advanced card, like this darker shaded card, which we select randomly. So we shuffle these up and get them ready for play. And we also add another tile for both level 2 and 3, giving the bot 4 for the level 2 and 6 for the level 3. And if you were going to pick level 4 or 5, it would still require 5 cards to start, but you would add even more objective tiles. And of course, the progress track priority changes as well, and also where it's going to start on the progress track. So in this scenario, we're going to go ahead and demo the level 2 bot. We distribute the objective tiles taken from the top of the stack. I will draw 2 from level 1 and 1 level 2 to start off the game. Each objective has one or more tasks. When you complete a task, mark it. In this case, we are on round 1, and I have completed 2 tasks. I simply move them next to my board at the end of my turn. Then I replace as many as I have completed, and you may claim these at any point during the game. Once the round is over, discard all the objective tiles that match the current round requirement. In this case, it was round 1, so I just needed to discard 1 of my completed objective tiles, if I have any. And if I were in round 2, I would need to discard at least 2 completed tiles, and so on. And for each objective tile you're not able to complete before the end of the round, you have to move its marker on the progress track 3 spaces. And as you can see, the further you complete these objectives, the more difficult they can get. Some of them even require 2 or 3 tasks to be completed. Anyway, at the end of round 5, any objective tiles still left unresolved, your rival scores 5 points per objective tile. In this scenario, I would have to give the rival 20 points. The turns are just like normal play, except we flip over a bot card every time it's the bot's turn. The cards have 3 different sections that you must check to see if the bot has met that condition. If the rival is not able to meet the condition from a particular section, you move down to the next section until the bot is able to perform an action. If you ever reach the bottom section, it's always going to perform that action. If you ever come across any decisions that require a tiebreaker, you have an arrow at the top of each card that will point either left or right. Alright, now as far as turns go, each of you take turns throughout the round until one of you passes. Alright, now whoever passes first gets to take a card from the end of round stack, and also gets to rotate the solar system as normal. Once you've both passed, the round is officially over. Now there will be times in the game where the bot will receive additional cards to play with, and it could be right in the middle of a round. In this case, the bot will have more turns than you. Therefore, you may have to wait a couple of turns in order for the bot to pass and finish the round. But once the round is over, you will proceed to the next round. And after the 5th round is complete, you go to final scoring. Alright, let's go through these cards with a couple of different scenarios. In this case, it's the 2nd round, and it's the bot's turn. So we will flip the first card, and we're going to go ahead and start looking at the top section to see if the bot can activate their actions. And if not, we work our way down until it can. And right now, it's asking if the computer track is full of data to be analyzed. And in this case, it's not. So we move on to the 2nd section. And this one wants to launch a probe out from Earth, if the bot doesn't already have a probe hovering around Earth, that is. And in this case, the rival has not launched a probe out yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the rival's probes and we're going to place it on Earth, simulating a launch. And next, the card gives the bot a publicity point. So let's increase it from 2 to 3. And that's the end of the first turn. We now fast forward to its 2nd turn. This one would activate if it had already flipped a 2nd alien board. And since we haven't even flipped the first one, we ignore this action and move on to the next section, here. And in this section, the card wants the bot to move into Jupiter, if it can make it there within 3 moves from its current position. And in this case, it cannot, because it would actually take 5 spaces to get to Jupiter. So then we're going to move to the next planet, and in this case, it's Mars. And from here, you can see that it can make it. Now there's 2 different paths to get to Mars. You can go this way, or you can go this way. In this case, the rival always prefers the path that has the most publicity points, and this path provides 2 publicity points. So we'll go ahead and choose this one. And so now let's go ahead and give the rival 2 publicity points. That's going to take the rival from 3 to 5. And now within the same action, it also wants to send that same probe to Mars. And it's either going to orbit Mars or land on Mars. But because it also has a probe technology tile for this action, it will land on Mars's moon instead. So let's go ahead and discard the tile. And the symbol below it is a reminder of this additional bonus action. So let's send the rival's probe to land on the Mars moon. And I'll set it aside here to show you what the bot receives for landing on this moon. So the rival's going to receive 8 points immediately. So then we'll move it from 4 to 12. And then it's going to receive 2 bonuses. which for a normal player, this symbol means that we would get to flip over 2 of our cards from our hands and tuck it under for income. However, the bot gets to convert these bonuses for additional steps around its progress track. In fact, it gets 4 movements per symbol, so it's going to move a total of 8 spaces. So it's going to end here. And notice that I passed this section here. This symbol means that now the bot gets to receive an additional card from its supply immediately. This is how the bot may end up with more turns than you during a round. And this is an advanced card, not a starter card, which means it'll receive a couple of additional bonuses. Now let's go through a quick hypothetical scenario here. Let's say that the bot didn't have a launch tech tile during the same play. In that case, the bot would have to orbit around Mars or land on Mars, but it wouldn't be able to send a probe to Mars's moon. So in that case, which one would the bot prefer? Well, that's going to depend if I had one of my probes already on one of those spaces. So let's say that my probe was already orbiting Mars. Then the bot would prefer to land on Mars. Well, what if there was a tie, where I had both, or none at all? In that case, we're going to refer to its card and see what it prefers. And on this card, it's going to show that it prefers to orbit. So we would place it around Mars instead. Now, going back to our original scenario, it landed on the moon. Now, let's fast forward to the bot's next turn, and this time we're going to get to see the newly added card. And in the first section, it wants to launch another probe from Earth. And since we just sent one from Earth, it will get to launch a probe out from Earth again. And it's also going to get another publicity point. And now the rival will end up with a total of 6 publicity points, setting itself up for a good move next time. And as you can see, it added another bonus with these types of cards. So now it advances another step on the progress track. Alright, let's fast forward again for its 4th turn of the round. Again, it wants to analyze, but its computer is not full yet. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next section of the card. And now it wants to spend those 6 publicity points to rotate the solar system and then gain a tech tile. That spends down to 0. And now to rotate the solar system, it's going to go across this blue spot. So that means it's going to go through the blue ring. So we rotate it once. There we go. And now both Earth and the rival's probe are aligned with the Kepler sector. Lastly, it's going to receive a tech tile. Now, which tech tile will depend on where the marker is located on the progress track. In this case, it's in the purple section, and it's going to be looking for a space number 2. Again, it was a purple or telescope tech tile, starting with slot number 2. So that would be this one. It's going to receive 2 points from this bonus tile immediately. So let's move it. 1, 2, and it's now tied with me at 14. Now let's go into another hypothetical scenario. Let's say that on that same turn, but instead, that space was already taken. It wouldn't go for that technology tile. It would instead go for the next tile over, and that's because it prefers those 2-point bonus tiles. Following the location order of the progress track. What if there weren't any of those 2-point tiles to the right of it? Then if you follow the progress track, you'll notice that the order of the next space won't be another purple. It will instead move to the first orange tech tile. And if none of those were available, then it would move to the first blue tile instead. But that was not the case in our original scenario. It was the second tile on the telescope section, so we'll use that. Now let's go ahead and place it on its board, and notice that the tech tile has an energy bonus on it. While the bot does not receive nor use any energy, it instead converts it for 1 additional space up the track. Alright, now let's go ahead and fast forward to the rival's next turn. And on this card, it's asking again if there is an alien board flipped. And again, we don't have anything flipped yet, so we move on to the next section. In this case, the rival no longer has the 6 publicity points to spend, so instead, we're going to move on to the last section. And in this section, the bot will scan, and it's going to scan a total of 3 times. Now, the first time will be on a sector that Earth is pointing to, and the other two will be scanning from cards on the display. And because on the last turn it was able to gain a telescope tech tile, it's going to go ahead and discard it and receive its fourth scanning action from another card on the display. Alright, so let's start with the one that Earth is pointing to, which is Kepler. We'll replace this data token with one of its markers. And we're going to place it on the leftmost available space of its computer track. And that's its first scan action. Remember, it's going to have a total of 4. So now we're going to move on to the next one. And this time, it will be from one of the cards on the display. And in order to know which card it will be using first, we need to reference the arrow found on the top of the card that it just played. And in this case, the arrow is pointing to the left. So we're going to go to the leftmost available card, and this card scans on a red sector. So we just send this card to the discard pile. Now, don't forget that the display never refills until after the rival has completed its entire turn. And now we proceed to scan in a red sector. And as you can see, there's 2 red sectors here and here. The bot will always choose a sector in which it can win. In other words, not only able to complete that sector during this turn, but also win it. And between these two, the one that it can win won't be this one, because when the rival completes it, I would end up winning since I have the most. However, in this red sector, if the rival places its marker here, it will complete it and it will have the majority to win it. So we'll go ahead and place it here. And we will resolve this sector at the end of the rival's turn. In the meantime, let's take this data token over to its board. Notice that it has covered this symbol here, which means we will need to move its marker 4 spaces around the progress track, which means it's now going to enter the orange zone for any future tech tiles. Alright, we're going to go ahead and move to the third scan action, and this time we're going to use the same direction arrow for the next card. And it's going to be a black sector. And again, we're going to discard this one. We have these 2 black sectors here to decide on. Remember, first the bot wants to select a sector where it can win. However, the bot will not be able to complete either one during this turn to win. So the next tiebreaker is going to be the sector that it provides the 2 points. This one is already taken from my marker, so it's going to take this spot instead. Alright, so now we just need to give the rival the 2 points. And let's take that data token back to its board. And let's not forget that it gets the 4th scan action because it has that tech tile. So it just discards the tech tile to activate the 4th scan action. And it will scan from the last card. And it will scan in a blue sector. Alright, so let's discard this one. And once the rival's turn is over, we're going to go ahead and refill the market. Alright, so we have this blue sector and this blue sector. And again, it's not going to win either one. Both 2 point spaces are already taken. So the last tiebreaker is to place it on a sector that the rival has the most markers in. Well, they're tied. It has 3 markers here and 3 markers here. So with the last tiebreaker, the rival will select the larger sector. In other words, the one that holds the most markers. This one can hold 5, and this one can hold 6. So it'll be this one. Alright, so let's go ahead and take this data token back to its board. And that's going to take up the last spot. And even though this has completed the computer track, it will not analyze until one of its cards tells us to perform that action. Alright, now that the turn is over, we'll go ahead and resolve the completed sector. And even though we are tied for markers, since the rival placed the latest one, it breaks the tie and ends up winning the sector. It's now going to be able to mark a red life trace. We'll go ahead and take all of these markers back. And because I'm in second place, I get to keep one of my markers on this track for next time. We will also receive 1 publicity point since we each contributed to this sector. Now let's place a marker on a red life trace for the rival. And there's 2 red spaces, but this one's occupied. So we'll need to place it here. And this spot will provide a publicity point and 5 victory points. Now let's do another hypothetical example. Let's say that both red spots were available. In that case, it will need a tiebreaker. So it will use the arrow from the card to determine which side it will place its marker. However, I've heard from others that they will just give the rival the benefit of the doubt and just place it where it will gain the most points instead. This red spot will give 3 points, but this one will give 5 points. So it would place it there anyway. Now, personally, I would prefer it that way because I think it's just a little bit more challenging for me. So let's continue with our original scenario. Again, it's going to earn 1 publicity point. So now it's 2. And now the 5 points. And also, now that it's crossed this space, means it's going to trigger a neutral marker to be placed on an alien board. And when we place the neutral marker, it always goes on the leftmost available space. And now that we've completed all 3 spaces under the alien board, we get to flip the board. And now everyone that contributed to flipping this board will receive an alien card, except of course for the neutral marker. So first I'll get a card, and then we'll go ahead and set up the alien card with its draw pile. And we're going to get to see one from the display. Oops, let's flip this around. And the bot would also receive an alien card. However, the rival doesn't use those cards. So instead, it will just convert it to another movement up the progress track. And let's set aside the exofossil tokens here for now. And now we're going to place the Oumuamua extra piece onto the board. And you see this blue arrow next to Saturn? There's another one over here. So we have to place it on the spot that doesn't have a planet next to it. So it's going to go here. And now we only need to add 3 data tokens. Now remember that in this sector, no one wins majority. It's just to gain more data tokens and other bonuses. We can also orbit or land on it. Alright, now that the rival's turn is over, let's refill the market. We're now going to fast forward to the middle of the 3rd round. And it's back to the rival. So let's turn the next card over. And now it wants to analyze. And now that the computer is full of data, it will go ahead and analyze. It doesn't have a computer tactile, so it won't gain any of the bonuses depicted on its card. Otherwise, it would have gained 3 points and 1 more bump up the progress track. Alright, so now we need to remove all the data tokens from the board. And we're going to go ahead and discard them. And because it's activated the analyze action, it's going to gain a blue life trace. And of course, there's only 1 spot left for the blue life trace. And that's going to trigger the next alien board to be flipped. But first, let's give the rival the 3 victory points and the 1 publicity point as well. So here's the 1 publicity point. And now it's reached 4. And it gets the 3 points, passing me. And now that it's reached the space, it means that it's going to place a marker onto one of the milestones. And the way this works is that it's going to place it on one of the most expensive spots for one of these milestones. And to know which one it's going to go to first, we're going to reference the decision arrow on the card it just played. And it's pointing to the right, which means it's going to choose the tile that has an available spot furthest to the right. And they never choose a milestone that already has a first spot occupied, which I have done here. They'll just move it on to the next one. All right, let's go with a quick hypothetical example. So let's say that the tiles were full on the first space, then it would just skip this action. Again, its sole purpose is just to block me from gaining the most valuable points, since it doesn't gain any points from these milestones and doesn't count towards final scoring anyway. So we'll just go ahead and place it where we originally had it. Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and trigger the alien board and flip it over. And it looks like it's going to be the anomalies. And we'll start off by gaining an anomaly card, since my marker contributed to this alien board. The rival will also gain a card. However, remember that it just converts cards into progress track movements, which we're going to do here in just a minute. But for now, we're going to go ahead and place the cards next to the board. and flip one over for the display. And as you know, these anomaly pieces get distributed out onto the solar system board. So just randomly select one, and then that one gets placed on whichever sector Earth is pointing to. Here's Earth, and then you're going to follow it all the way to the last ring before you hit the outermost ring. So we'll place it here, and then you're going to count 3 sectors away from where you placed the first anomaly. And the second one will go here. And again, you're going to do the same thing, only this time you're going to go clockwise, 3 spaces away, again from where Earth is pointing to. So the last one will go here. Now it doesn't replace the comet, it's in addition to that space. So make sure you don't cover the comet, or if it was a planet, make sure you don't cover the planet either. So just set it aside and know that that sector is available for an anomaly as well. Just remember that the next time that the Earth is rotated around, and wherever it stops on a sector that already has an anomaly, you're going to need to go to the anomaly board and check to see who's winning in that column matching the anomaly life trace. All right, we're going to go ahead and fast forward to the rival's next turn. So let's go ahead and flip the next card. And this time it's asking if the second alien board has been flipped. And in this case it has, which means we will need to immediately replace the card with an Oumuamua card because that's the one that's corresponding to the first board we flipped. So we will have to replace this one for this one. And now this card gets discarded for the remainder of the game. So now we're going to need to use this card instead for this turn, and it's also going to stay in the draw pile for the remainder of the game. And now the rival wants to go to Oumuamua if it can reach it within 4 spaces. If not, we will have to scan instead. So can it reach in 4 spaces? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it can. Which path? They're going to prefer this path because it has a publicity point. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's actually going to get another publicity point just for landing in Oumuamua. And now it's going to move up to 6. Then it will either land or orbit on Oumuamua. Remember that the rival will simply go on a space that doesn't have any of my pros. But because there's nothing there, then we reference the card instead to decide which one it would prefer. So in this case, it would land. And that means it's going to receive 4 data tokens, 9 points, and 2 of those exofossil tokens. And we'll just set these aside for now. Here are the 4 data tokens it just received from that bonus. And actually, we can start filling these up now. And now it's going to receive a publicity point. It gets a boost up the progress track 4 spaces. And it looks like it's going to fill up its computer again. Now let's give the rival 9 points. It's at 26 and we're going to move it to 35. And now it's past this space, which we would normally add these to trigger the alien boards, but since they're both already flipped, we're just going to go ahead and discard them. Now, the next time that the rival gains an alien life trace, normally it would add it on the lowest row of the board, but because it has to spend 4 exofossils for the first row, and it only has 2 currently, it's just going to add it to the next row above it, at least until it has accumulated enough to pay for the one that's at the bottom row, which requires 4 exofossils, but it's going to gain 25 points. So let's flip this next card. And this one indicates that if we flip the second alien board, then we have to replace this card with the rival's alien card that pertains to the alien board. So since we discard this one from the game. And now we are introduced to this new alien card, which again pertains to the anomalies. And now we must perform the actions from this card right away. The first section says that if the rival doesn't have the most markers on the column matching the next anomaly piece, then it will add one. And that's because it wants to make sure that it wins the columns the next time that Earth is aligned with the anomaly token, here. So we have to check the life trace color of this anomaly, which is purple, from the anomalies board. On this purple column here. These bottom ones don't count, so since it's not winning currently, it's going to place it on the bottommost row of the alien board. matching the current anomaly colored tile. All right, so in a hypothetical scenario, if the rival was already winning that column, then it would just skip this section and move down to the next section on the card. But in this scenario, the rival is not winning, so it will place its first marker on that column, assuring a win next time we do a line. So now it's going to receive an alien card and 4 points. Remember that whenever it gains an alien card, instead it converts it to a progress movement. So it's going to get the 4 points from the alien board, plus it gains 3 points from this card. So it gets a total of 7 points. And actually, let me go ahead and return Earth back to its original position, since we were just using it as reference. Remember that Earth does not have to be at that sector in order to activate this rival's alien card. But it does have to be in that sector in order for us to compete for the majority of that anomaly. And whoever wins gains 1 credit for that one anomaly. Or 1 publicity point if it came back all the way around and points back to this one again. All right, we have reached the end of the 5th round. We will now move on to the final scoring. And as you can see, I'm beating the bot 110 to 96. And I've scored all of my points as normal, including the milestone tiles. Except the rival does not gain any points from these milestones. It just blocks me from getting the best ones. But the rival will score from any remaining objective tiles that we still have not completed. And as you can see, I wasn't able to mark some of these tasks on these objective tiles. That means the bot's going to receive 5 points for each one. And since there are 3 remaining, the bot's going to get 15 points. So from 96, we're going to go 10 plus 5 more. The rival is at 111, which means the rival has beaten me by 1 point. We have now reached the end of this tutorial. You have now graduated from SETI Community College. If you have any questions or comments, or if I've made any rules mistakes, please add your comments below. But that's it for me. Until our next board game adventure, hope you had a great time with this one.